So Ben, let's Ben and Richard actually, let's talk about the efficiencies working with IoT. Let's talk about the efficiencies that this SIM technology that you've developed will actually benefit the people that obviously use it, and what does that mean to them? What does it actually save? What's the USP? What's the outcome of all this? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
If you can monitor and measure the traffic, you have a greater insight in terms of what that traffic is, when it's passing, what time of day it's passing. It can give us, and we can create specific KPIs to increase efficiency. So if you choke traffic and make sure that the only traffic you have got is pertainable to a specific connection. If you're doing firmware updates, if you're doing any other kind of sort of VPN work, because we can also provide secure VPNs to allow you to manage edge devices remotely. I don't care whether they're here, overseas, makes no odds. So you can get to that edge device even through our private routing. It allows us to go back to the client and say, right, this is what you're transferring at this time of day or this season or whatever the case may be. Maybe if you modified your update dates or your periods, you could create a greater efficiency in terms of a power use, whatever the process might be for you, and reduce operational costs, because operational cost in IoT is a pain in the backside. It's a big pain in the backside. What that allows us to do by doing this as well is negate Billshock.
Yeah, and I think
Billshock is a big issue, isn't it?
Yeah, we had it, and I've got a couple of quick case studies in terms of what Ben's referenced. So we had a particular customer that was dealing with forklifts within logistics, and their software and system they created for health and safety purposes had a 3-tier traffic light system. It had green, it had amber, and it had blue. The only issue they needed to report on was blue, which was a big issue. The green and the amber, it was minor incidents and things. But the SIM was actually sending green and amber reports, but the only thing the system picked up was blue. So what we did was eliminate the traffic being passed on green and amber services. And I know it's only small figures, but when you talk about 90% of their data consumption, it went from 40 meg to 4 meg in terms of the requirement for the data, because they were just sending the data because that's what the device was doing, when the system they report on was only picking up one of the 3 traffic light systems. So it was redundant data at a significant cost.
That's a cost they didn't need to spend.
And they had considerable overages because of it before us. So I think that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's almost, isn't it? We're looking at, especially in business right now, it's about those marginal gains, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So where can you create those marginal gains? Energy efficiency is massive. Sustainability, it's number one.
Carbon neutral targets.
Absolutely, it's number one on everybody's agenda. So if you can, Richard, when you're actually talking to people about this, are people picking up on that? Is that high on their agenda when they're looking at this?
Yeah, again,
or don't they know it's there? It's almost like you go in and you say, look, we've identified you've got a problem, but you don't really know you've got a problem as such.
I think the market's picking it up now. So you mentioned before about logistics in terms of the transportation industry. There's another customer where they've got the IoT units to the parts when it's received at manufacturing, and they have a piece of software that will see where that part goes within the warehouse and then creates a more efficient way of getting it from point A to point B, because what it was doing was going to point A, B, C, D, E, and it could be done more efficiently, which again is a reduction in the energy being used into the electric forklift trucks, all sorts of components. Again, apologies, I keep going back to stories, but it makes it easier. There was another facilities management business, and we do a lot within housing associations, and one of the things they needed was to test how cold the water was and how hot the water was to make sure it's not too cold or too hot. So they used to send a man in a van, diesel van, out to site to test it, would run his report, come back, and would sign off the work. What they've now got, or what they've now procured, is a unit that actually can remotely test the temperature at the source of the pipe, and they can do this as regularly as they want. So no man in van
at all times. So always like an always on type. Yeah. And if the temperatures get too extreme in either way,
so their green footprint and return on investment was massive.
Unbelievable.
But again, so you've got that 2-tier process: the physical, and then the the monitoring of the data process to ensure the amount of data you're drawing down or passing MOMT is right and fit for purpose and mission critical. And then when do you time that? So if you can get a better timing frame, then you can reduce on energy costs. These things all need power. It's about providing a client with as much information for them to disseminate as they need to and say, right, this assists. This is an evidence base. It provides an evidence base and a story behind what we do to protect our infrastructure, our cellular infrastructure, and protect our clients and mitigate risk for the business, and also create as greater efficiencies. Now, with the NHS deployments, the largest of the digital transformation projects we did, we were able on a weekly basis to provide them information to say how these devices were being used and give them the stats they didn't have access to before. And it helped substantiate the reason for being for the project.
Yeah.
And that goes for everybody.
I think what I love about this is this is built on fact. This is not you creating a set of sales statements almost, and it's almost
evidence-based report. Yeah, you're right.
And it's almost like every time you go into a client, the more and more you see how people are using this, it builds your knowledge of case studies to say, look, these are the models that other people are deploying, say in housing associations, in utility companies, and things like that. And you can actually then go to the customer and say, look, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And probably, we talk about this, don't we, that problem identification. You could go probably to 100 housing associations who aren't even thinking this way at this moment in time, and just say, look, this is a model that we've rolled out.
And it's one component.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
you buy the SIM, all of this efficiency and technology and AI is behind this one conduit, which is the SIM. We're not asking you to buy licenses for other platforms. We're not doing that. And what we don't do is we don't supersede any other form of infrastructure that they have in place. So we're not asking you to change your infrastructure. We're not asking. We can run alongside and upstream. And it's about that one specific niche product, and that's cellular connectivity.
Absolutely fascinating. Love that. Love that part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.